Jerry Conacher. Just want to welcome you now to this final program in a series we've been doing here, and it's just a wonderful series on St. Louis de Montfort's treatise on total consecration, a book written by Eddie Doherty. And we're here with Father Hugh Gillespie, who is a Montfort father, guiding us through this book, and Father Bernard Geiger, my spiritual director. Well, Father, we're now on chapter, this is 17 now,
yes.
And then the appendix, so we're winding down, so I give it to you.
Yes, we're at the last part of the book. Chapter 17 is very brief, and it deals with just one issue. The title here is Applying True Devotion, but this is a very narrow application that we have in chapter 17, but a very important one.
Okay.
And it's the application of this devotion at the moment of receiving communion. And so in other words, what Montfort included in his work on the Virgin Mary and on his spirituality was a recognition that the fruit of this needs to be a regular participation in the sacramental life of the Church, and that this needs to make a difference in how we participate in that sacramental life. In fact, now, if we think about this in historical context, at Montfort's time in France, one of the great struggles was against a spiritual tendency called Jansenism.
Yes.
And what that had done in a number of pockets was to root in people a wrong consciousness of their sinfulness, where unless one is in a completely perfect state of grace, one doesn't come before the Lord. And you ask the question, when does that ever happen?
Yeah.
And so, as much as Montfort speaks about our unworthiness, our sinfulness, that we always taint the grace we're given, and that language could be strong and shocking to us. It's important to recognize in his time, stronger language is being used, and Montfort was the one who also proclaimed the tenderness of a God ready to receive us. And so Montfort is writing for people in an age when communion was not frequent by any means. And so it's really remarkable then that he leaves us an instruction for how to receive communion. What he's assuming, remember he said, before you make your consecration, go to confession and communion. If communion was infrequent, he's insisting, let's get that taken care of.
That's
and let's get you reintegrated into participating fully in the life of the Church. But now when you receive communion again, and he's not thinking 5 years down the road, when you receive communion again, here's a way that you can do this. And so it's really important to have that context here. The other thing to keep in mind is that of the 3 sacraments of initiation, we only repeat one of them, and that's Holy Communion. Baptism we do once, confirmation we do once, communion, the Eucharist, we celebrate daily. And it's worthwhile pausing for a second and thinking that on a daily basis then, in receiving communion, we renew the reality of our baptism. In baptism, we receive the life of Jesus, and we are plunged into that life. In communion, we receive again the life of Jesus. And the body of Christ, as St. Augustine so beautifully says, receives the body of Christ. We receive who we are, we become who we receive. Montfort, it seems, recognizes this. And if he connects this devotion with the perfect living out or renewing of our baptism, he recognizes then communion of all places is that place we frequently want to renew it, because there again we renew the most important, our participation in intimate union with the life of Jesus. And so that's what he leaves us here. And he says, before communion, you must humble yourself profoundly before God. Renounce your corrupted nature and dispositions, however good your self-love makes them seem. He knows we fool ourselves. And renew your consecration. And then ask Mary to lend you her heart that you may receive Jesus there and with her dispositions. Now, when we read Montfort here, a very natural and ordinary reaction is, you mean I can't even receive communion by myself? I don't even get to keep that. And,
Everything.
And that's a natural reaction. And what Montfort is saying is, of course you get to receive communion by yourself. But let's just pause again. And remember what Montfort said about needing a mediator with Christ, needing a mediator with God.
Right.
And it wasn't because we couldn't approach the Lord on our own. Montfort said, of course we can. We can do that whenever we want. The problem is we often do not appreciate who it is we are approaching. And we do so pridefully. And so we choose a mediator, and in choosing a mediator, we acknowledge the greatness of the one before whom we stand.
Yes, because if the Father requires an intercessor, the Son's no less than the Father.
Right.
So Mary's our intercessor.
Exactly. And Montfort is saying the same thing here. It's not that you can't receive Jesus into your own heart by yourself. Go right ahead. But how often do we receive communion and take our Lord for granted? How often are we inattentive? And let's face it, as perfectly attentive as I try to be, I'm still missing something.
Yeah, you're distracted.
Right. And so Montfort is saying, this is not about whether you can or can't. This is about when you take a moment and acknowledge the fact that you get distracted, that you're still carrying sin that you need to let go, that you're not completely ready or completely attentive, and you recognize the greatness of the one who comes into your life, you naturally make this move. And it's a move very consonant with the movements of the consecration. I realize I need help. I realize I do not fully appreciate this, and I want to fully live it. And I want to give Christ the greatest honor possible. So this is what I will do. So you notice what he's saying here is actually a way of reproducing the basic movements he's already been talking about. And, you know, his language gets a little strong here, but at base, this is what he's saying. And he makes he has a powerful, powerful image here in this section. And it's an image of the Nativity. And we romanticize the Nativity. Even the barn with the animals and the smell in the hay looks pretty for us anymore.
Yeah.
In our Christmas cards and our Christmas plays. Montfort here does something really shocking to the modern ears. And he says, when you speak to Mary, tell her that Jesus, who loves her with a divine love, a unique love, still desires to rest and delight in her, although he must come to your soul to do so. A soul filthier and poorer even than the stable in which he was born. That's a striking image of both Bethlehem and of the human heart.
Right.
But he loved being there because Mary was there. What Montfort is really saying is, you know, this is no great castle for the Lord. And let's acknowledge that. And let's admit it. And let's even laugh at ourselves as we read this and say, you know, he's right.
Yeah.
But the point being that Christ will come to the poorest place. The poorest place to meet us and share life with us. But he comes even more readily and even more perfectly when Mary is there waiting to receive him. And lurking then in the background of Montfort's description of how to receive Jesus in communion is this image of the stable at Bethlehem. And, you know, that song, "Oh, come, let us adore him." And it helps us to understand what Montfort is getting at if we keep that in mind. But at base, what Montfort is saying, he's not saying in the middle of Mass when you should be praying other prayers, or in the middle of the Eucharistic prayer, distract yourself from what's going on and say these things.
Right.
Okay? Montfort is not saying stop paying attention to the Mass so you can privately do this. Montfort would say, remember, he's writing this at a time when the Tridentine Mass allowed for, because people didn't understand the Latin, the possibility of private devotions in the context of Mass. The renewed liturgy does not. The renewed liturgy insists on our unified, active and full participation, our communion in what is going on.
Right.
So Montfort is not saying stop in the middle of Mass and distract yourself with this. That would be an illusion of the devil.
Right.
Montfort is saying, as you prepare yourself for Mass, when you arrive early, during those quiet moments in the liturgy, when you have a chance to catch your breath, prepare yourself. Get ready and acknowledge what it is to happen, and ask Mary help you to receive Jesus and even to receive Jesus for you.
Right.
And then Montfort says, now when we come to the moment of communion, and in the old liturgy there was the threefold repetition of, "Oh Lord, I am not worthy." Montfort has that here. Now for us, the last prayer we say before we come forward to receive Jesus, but we say it once, is, "Lord, I am not worthy to receive you." but only say the word and I shall be healed. And Montfort says, linger with that. Now this is beautiful. Montfort really, how often do we say that and it's quick and it's rushed and we don't carry that disposition forward to the altar? What Montfort encourages here is, as you're doing this, literally, acknowledge your unworth before the Lord and ask again for the help to receive Him worthily and with dignity. So this is a point because there is that moment's pause between saying that and approaching the Lord in communion, where now we can linger. We can prepare ourselves with that last prayer we have said. And then Montfort says, now as we receive Jesus, we recollect ourselves. We turn now and we come back to our bench and immediately we turn and we say, Lord, here is your mother and I give you to her. Mary, I give you the greatest thing I can give you, the greatest gift I can give you, your son, the gift God Himself gave you. Now, is this because I don't want Jesus? No. It's because, remember what Montfort says, I am too weak to hold on to the treasure that God places in my hands. And so if I would preserve the presence of Jesus in my life, I turn and I give Him immediately to Mary as my greatest treasure. And then Montfort says, remember, oh, come, let us adore Him. The King is with the Queen, and they speak to one another. Take advantage of the opportunity to silently adore the love they share and the union between them. Or, he says, now turn to Mary and pray with her. She now holds Jesus. She's now with Jesus.
To visualize that.
Exactly. So he says, now turn to Mary and say, Mary, pray with me and obtain for me the gift of Christ's presence. Obtain for me forgiveness of my sins. Obtain for me a spirit more capable of praising the Lord. So all of this is about helping me to appreciate the greatness of this sacrament and then helping me to live it.
So one way as we approach Holy Communion, we can say, Mother, please take possession of me. I'm not worthy to receive your Son. Be with me. Guide me.
Exactly.
In your own words, just your own words. You don't have to...
And now again, we're living in an era now of daily communion.
Yes.
That wasn't the reality in Montfort's day, except for the clergy. So, this, Montfort isn't saying, okay, every day you have to bear down and drive yourself crazy trying to be focused. This is a gentle movement. What he really wants is us to regularly include the Blessed Mother in what we do, regularly renew our self-gift to Jesus in this way, at this moment of communion, so that we don't take it for granted, so that we truly appropriate it and truly live it. And so again, scrupulosity here is not the order of the day. Now, does this mean after I receive Jesus in communion, I can't say the Magnificat like we talked about earlier? No. Does it mean I have to renew my consecration before communion and not after? No. The point is, Montfort is saying, when I unite myself with Mary, and when I acknowledge the fact that I so often simply do not appreciate what is going on and I need her help, the communion becomes a more powerful moment for me when I include her. And then, how beautiful would it be to say the Magnificat with her in the presence of the Lord, to renew my consecration with her in the presence of the Lord. So all of these things can be done, and Montfort says, and the Holy Spirit will suggest more things. So don't lock yourself in here, but start here.
That's beautiful. Father Bernard, do you have any insights?
Well, it's just a wonderful thing to reflect also on the sacrament of the Eucharist as Holy Communion. It's called Holy Communion because that's the grace that it brings about. As much as we want it and believe in it, it brings about our communion with Jesus and with the Father in Jesus, but also our communion with one another, beginning with Mary in Jesus. As he prayed at the Last Supper, it would happen. So these are things that you want to, I pray when I am receiving communion and making thanksgiving after communion, that Jesus will bring about that communion that he wants with me. Yes, I want a communion with me, but he wants a communion with me far more than I do. And he knows what that means. I don't even know what it means. But he does. And so one of the thoughts that has occurred to me is to ask Jesus to give me and to accomplish in me whatever he wants to do by this sacrament that I've just received or that I'm receiving. I don't appreciate it, but he does.
Yeah.
He knows what he wants to accomplish in me. And to ask for that, you're opening your heart to whatever he wants to do, and you're giving him permission to do whatever he wants to do in you through this particular communion that you're receiving today. And I found that to be very powerful and very fruitful.
What else do we want to share? We got 8 more minutes.
Okay. Well, now we come to the appendices in the booklet. And there are 3. The first is a formula of self-consecration, or consecration of oneself to Jesus through Mary.
Right.
This originally was not part of the Montfort's work, True Devotion. This is written originally in Montfort's work, The Love of Eternal Wisdom.
Okay.
But custom over the years has taken it from there as the only extant formula we really have of any length, and has regularly appended it to The Secret of Mary and the True Devotion, the works people usually read in preparation for this act.
Okay.
Okay, so some of the language here will be a little bit different than what we've read in True Devotion itself. Also here are 2 prayers composed by Montfort, a prayer to Jesus and a prayer to Mary. And these are wonderful prayers that sum up the spirituality and are beautiful exercises to use from time to time after one has made the consecration, or even before, but especially afterwards, because they keep bringing us back into touch with its core. They're longer prayers. They're not easily memorized. They're the kind of thing you have to sit down and read and linger with. So they're not necessarily prayers for every day, but prayers to, from time to time, whether it's weekly or monthly, or even during that period when one is renewing one's consecration, it's just good to sit and linger with. But what we really do want to look at is this formula for consecration, and just have a sense of, we've talked so much about consecration.
Yes, when we do it.
Let's look at what the formula, the model formula Montfort gave us, really contains. And the first is the title he gives it. You see, he took Father Tronson seriously, as we talked about in a previous section. Consecration to Jesus Christ, the incarnate wisdom through the hands of Mary. So automatically, right away he's saying this is consecration to Jesus through Mary. And he begins this prayer addressing directly Jesus. Okay, so this is not a prayer directly addressed to Mary first. He addresses it directly to Jesus, and he says, I adore you in the bosom of your Father in eternity, and in the bosom of your Mother in the time of your incarnation. He's so captivated by this dual connection of Jesus, Son of the Father, Son of Mary, held in the bosom of the Father in all eternity, held similarly in the bosom, in the womb of Mary, in time. And he thanks Jesus next for annihilating himself. Look at that language. This is not unique to Montfort. Montfort inherits this from the French school of spirituality. And those writers that Montfort read spoke of the annihilation of self and the annihilation of the Word in the Incarnation. It was the only language they had for the radical self-emptying that happens when God becomes human, when everything becomes nothing. And so Montfort is recognizing if the Word annihilates, empties himself that radically for me, what is it for me to empty myself for the Word?
Yeah, right.
And taking the form of a slave. So you notice he's predicating of Christ. He's predicating of the Word. Everything he's going to take on himself. And so Christ is the model, Christ is the pattern, and this is what we share. To free me from the cruel slavery of the devil. I thank you, I glorify you because you consented to submit to Mary. Again, the model of Jesus' submission to Mary becomes the model for our submission. But then he stops. You did this to make me your faithful slave through her. And he says, but, Lord, I'm ungrateful and I'm unfaithful, and this is the reality of who I am, knowledge of self. I have not kept the promise of my baptism. Even here, Montfort brings it up. He doesn't get off of it. You own me through my baptism, and I have not acknowledged that. And he says, you know, what I really deserve is your anger. I don't deserve your love or your mercy. You've given me that, and I've run away from it. Now, could I still stand here and ask for them? Yes. But he recognizes the greatness of this. And so he says, I now turn to Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And so you notice, though, right, just like in his process of preparation, I desire to share the life of Jesus. I recognize who I truly am,
right,
called and claimed by Christ, but incapable of following.
Mm-hmm.
And so I now turn to Mary. So this is just a neat way of the movements are reproduced in the prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I have recourse to the intercession of your mother, whom you gave to me, and I hope to obtain from you through her contrition for my sins and to be given your wisdom that I might keep it.
Right.
And so then he turns directly to Mary. And he praises Mary. He turns and he declares his knowledge of Mary, and he lets that come out in effusive praise. He greets her and he asks her aid. And so this is not a prayer that Montfort says alone. Hail, sure refuge of sinners whose mercy has failed no one. Grant my desire for divine wisdom and receive the vows and offerings my lowliness therefore presents you. So he turns to Mary, invokes her aid, and says, you receive this gift of myself and you give it to Jesus. Then he makes his gift. And so this is the meat, this is the heart, this paragraph here. This is the core of the act of consecration. Mm-hmm. And so if one would memorize just one aspect of this, this is the section.
Okay.
I, Hugh Gillespie, a faithless sinner, renew and ratify today in your hands, O Immaculate Mother, the vows of my baptism. I renounce forever Satan, his pomps and works, and I give myself entirely to Jesus Christ, the incarnate wisdom, to carry my cross after him all the days of my life, and to be more faithful to him than I have ever been before. This is the heart of the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
If one wants to summarize it in 2 sentences, there they are.
Okay.
I give myself to Mary that I might be formed into the likeness of Jesus and faithfully carry my cross after him.
Yes.
That is the point. And now he continues, and he keeps speaking to Mary. I choose you as my mother and my mistress, and I give to you, I consecrate to you as your slave, my body, my soul, my goods, my past, my present, and my future. This is not just my good actions, this is my past, my memories, the events that shaped me, the wounds I bear, my present, the struggles I have, the potential I have now, my future, everything I can be and will be, I give to you. And this is really profound because it recognizes then that God can touch and claim and heal every aspect of my life, even my past, once it's in his hands. Receive, O Virgin, this offering. Grant me the grace to obtain the wisdom of God and teach me as one of your children. So Montfort, after making the act of consecration, now prays for the grace to live it and the continued presence of Mary to allow him to let that consecration grow to fruition in his life. And that, in a sense, is the essence of the prayer.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, Father. Well, this wraps up this series, and it's just, it's a way of life. It's a way of life. And it's changed John Paul's life. He's witnessed to all of his life, and in his death, he's given everything to Jesus through Mary, according to this formula, totus tuus, the St. Louis de Montfort formula. And if it's good enough for John Paul, it's good enough for us. And this is why we're promoting it throughout the world. So please go to our website, familyland.org. Learn how you can consecrate your family. Just click on Family Consecration. Thank you, and God bless.